Welcome to Leaving Nothing to Chance, your go-to podcast where we bring you insights from some of the most influential voices in small business and personal development. Each week, we dive deep into conversations with top thought leaders, authors, and business moguls from around the world, sharing their secrets to success and strategies for growth. Tune in for exclusive content that will inspire, motivate, and equip you to take your journey to the next level. This is Leaving Nothing to Chance.
Hey, it is my privilege, everybody, to welcome my friend Bob Nickman from California, where I imagine the weather's a little better than it is here in Dallas today, where it's 103 in May, Bob. I'm sure in Santa Monica it's a little nicer.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful today. I'm sorry about the terrible oppressive heat. I've been to Texas many times and I know what that is. And it's a great place except when that happens. And then you just want to just stay inside and stay cool. But I can see you're doing that by your background.
Yeah, no, I'm cool today, and I'm gonna go for a little dip tonight. I'm gonna go walk in a bit and enjoy the oppressive heat, and then I'm gonna go jump in my nice pool, which is fortunately covered by trees this time of day. We'll do that. But anyway, hey, Bob, you've got an expertise in alternative medicine and health for a long time, starting out, I think, in about 1985. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's starting out incredibly slowly, John. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. In 1985, after many years, I was a musician and then I was a stand-up comedian. And then I became a TV writer right after that. But right when I moved to Los Angeles in 1985, I decided that I'd had enough of the partying lifestyle. Let's put it that way. So there was a lot of years, particularly as a musician and as a comedian, that part of that lifestyle is a lot of drinking and other substances to slow you down at the end of the night or keep you going at the end of the night. Whatever you need. And it was all about like a great time. And it's a two-headed beast, and the ugly head won. And I basically went, I can't live this way anymore. This is just kicking my butt. Right after I got to Los Angeles, I decided that it was time to make a big change. So I got sober in 1985. And as a lot of people say, you only have to change one thing, and that's everything.
Yeah.
And so that's the path that I took. I started slow. I started really slow because I didn't know anything. I knew a little bit about that people were healthier than me. And for decades, I just didn't care. But at 31 years old, I'm like, oh, I can see what the next half of my life's going to be like if I don't change something.
You're being very humble because you weren't only a TV writer. I was doing a little bit of additional research last night. You wrote for some major shows.
Yeah, I did. We can talk about that for a second. I wrote for the original Roseanne show, not the first season. It was way down at the end of the run. And Drew Carey, and according to Jim, sitcoms mostly because I was a stand-up. I'm a joke writer by trade. That's what I do, or I did for a living forever. So it was a great segue to be able to go from nightclub performing to working in television. So that's what I did. When it was so all this health interest, I kept it to myself. I didn't really talk about it with other people because the people, particularly in comedy, the comedy world, we're a glib lot, and we're hard to. We're not big on the sincerity thing. It's part of what I like, and it's also part of what I didn't like. So I played the cards close to the vest and just had it as a separate thing. Plus, I was trying to learn about it, so I didn't really feel like I had any sort of special expertise at that time, and I'm not even sure I do now. I have an incredible curiosity and interest. That's really what I have.
You've got a terrific show, podcast. You're coming up to about 200 episodes, I think.
Yeah, I'm getting actually closer to 300, like 260, 270, somewhere in there. I've been doing this for a few years, and it was interesting because when I was working on a show called Marin, which was Mark Maron's show, and he is also very big in the podcast world. And I got to talking to him a little bit, and I thought, oh boy, I would love to do a podcast. What would I do it about? Because I didn't want to do show business or celebrity or any of that stuff. It didn't interest me that much. I thought, wait a minute, you've been doing this health path for 30 years, and you've learned a lot. And my wife, too, she's been interested in it also. One of the first things we discovered was that she had a very strong gluten allergy. And so that was one of the first things that we looked at is what is that? Why does she react so much? Why does she get sluggish and put on weight and feel not just not feel good? And it turned out that my oldest daughter also had even a more serious reaction to gluten. She would turn red and get depressed and bloated. And so we started to that was one of the first things we did is we took that out of their diet. And I don't eat it either. That took me a little bit longer. So that was just like learning about that was one thing. It was in, like we were talking about before. Sometimes when you have an issue, that piques the curiosity and you start to experiment. Then you find out there's other people doing it.
That's the amazing part, isn't it? And that's like we think we're the only crazy ones, and we find out other people are doing some of these things.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff was pre-internet exploration. It was you really had to go to a nutritionist, alternative, if that's the word you want to use, holistic health practitioner to find this stuff out. And I went to a couple of these kind of people. They were chiropractor slash, nutritionists, and they would do muscle testing, kinesiology, and all kinds of tests for allergies. It was really an interesting thing, but it's expensive. It's time consuming and expensive, and just like all health things, you have to experiment a little bit and see what works.
What's funny, I was a big fan of Jack LaLanne, still am, even though Jack's not with us anymore. But he had that great statement: "Nutrition is king, exercise is queen. You put them together, you got a kingdom."
Yeah.
And it's such a simple explanation, but so hard to do both things on a consistent basis, right? We know so many people, they're great going to the gym. I often laugh, right, around New Year's. You go to the gym and you park 3 blocks away. A month later, you park right in front of the gym, right? No, nobody there. And the
Yeah.
gym owner hopes they still are paying their dues, right? And that probably carries over into so many other things. But let's get deep, Bob. Let's get into some of these alternative medicine type of things. I call them alternative medicine. Most of them have become standard, like chiropractic. I was talking to our mutual friend, Dr. Carl Rothschild, a few weeks ago, and about the red light therapy, for example, that he's such a big advocate and pioneer. And he was a chiropractor in the 1970s. He said, John, there wasn't that many chiropractors in the 1970s, which
Yeah.
I've been going to one since I don't know, probably the mid 80s. I just always thought these guys were out there, and then you find out they were almost like a voodoo.
Yeah. People were highly skeptical. And I think part of it is because they didn't understand it. Obviously, that's a big part of it, but also the conventional medical community were threatened by it as any kind of alternative thing. Oh, if you don't need a conventional doctor for something, then they're going to lose money. They're not going to get as many patients. And so there's a lot of what I've noticed in a lot of these things, particularly those kinds of alternative type doctors or practitioners, they are a threat to the standard medical community. And there's a lot to be gained for the standard medical community to create skepticism around it. And by the way, there are people that are incompetent and charlatans. That does exist. There's a lot of crappy, I don't know how many crappy MDs there are that have been through medical school, but you hear those stories too. You want to make sure that, who you're talking to and who you're maybe going to as a practitioner is somebody that really knows their stuff.
And I'd add one thing to that, and somebody who actually cares about what they're doing. And that sounds like a redundant statement, but I have doctors that I work with my business and also on a personal level that really are dedicated to what they do. And they're not at work, or they're not with their family. They're in a book. They're going additional research, additional research. I want to know more, not only for my own health, but for their health as well. And I think that's something we see maybe a little bit more with the alternative docs than we do the traditional allopathic guys. But some of those guys, interesting. I'll have your thoughts on this. Some of those guys seem like there's becoming, it used to be like two separate entities. You
Yeah.
have the chiropractor, for example, and the orthopedist, and if they were in the same restaurant, one would leave. Today, a lot of times these guys would collaborate and say, hey, I have this patient and I can't help them with this, so I'm going to send them to you, or vice versa. where they're actually collaborating to help the patient, which I think is a great thing for us as clients, patients, etc. What's your thoughts on that? Have you seen a lot of that in your?
I've seen more and more. My primary care doctor, he's under a network, a legitimate, if you want to call it that, major medical network. He does acupuncture. He went to school and decided he was going to learn that. And so I talk to him about it when I see him once a year, maybe at the most, maybe twice. But we talk about, he knows what I do, that I have this podcast, and we talk about this kind of thing. So he's open minded. They didn't used to be, a lot of these guys. He recognizes, like he said to me one day, he goes, I'm no fan of the pharmaceutical industry, but there's certain things I think can be very beneficial under the right circumstances. So that's the kind of thing you want. You want to understand all the options and then pick the one that's right. That's right. I'm on the side of what works. I always say that. If it works, I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, the chiropractor I go to here, who's in that town where I think your daughter's working right now, Frisco. He's a chiropractor by profession, but he started to work with an MD because a lot of his chiropractic patients, yours truly included, need stem cells. Well, a chiropractor can't do stem cells because there's blood involved, but an MD can. So he's teamed up one day a week where the MD is actually in the chiropractic office administering the stem cells, which is good to see because once again, as the consumer, which we are, we call ourselves patients, right? But we're consumers of these various medical arts, and we want one stop if possible. If I got a back ailment or a shoulder ailment, I don't want to go three places. I want to go one and get taken care of. Along those lines, Bob, let me ask you a couple of things here. I mentioned red light, for example. That's something you personally have tried, or I know you know about it.
No, I'm going to try it. That's one of the things I'm going to try pretty soon. The one thing I experimented with was I did a cold plunge, and I had never done that before. And I had somebody on the show, and she said, "Come and do one before you interview me so you can have the experience." It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I was scared. I don't know, late 60s. I thought, what happens if I go in cold water? Am I going to have a heart attack? I actually thought that. She goes, no, you're not going to have a heart attack. Heated up in this sauna first and then went into this tub of ice water, dunked all the way under, and then brought my head up. And then she guided me through to breathe because it feels, I don't know if you've ever done it, but it feels like your entire body is being pinched. That's what it felt like. It's so cold that it's not cold, it's something else. And I think it was 3 minutes, and I got through the whole thing, breathing and just going, this is intense. And I got out, and oh my God, my whole body was just energized, tingling, mental clarity. And I was very talkative and felt energy with calmness built in together somehow. And as I was walking back to my car afterwards, maybe 15, 20 minutes later, I had this emotional release where I was crying, but I wasn't sad. It was just this emotions that were coming out. It really was like a whole body experience and mental also. And I thought it was amazing. So I know cold plunges and cryotherapy. There's a lot of things with cold. And now that's a very simple thing. That isn't pharmaceuticals. That's not going to a doctor. That's just something we can do as these biological creatures. We can reboot the system.
Exactly. Now, I'm a big fan of Wim Hof, big fan of cold plunging, and found the same thing. But the very first time I went in, I almost felt like it was like pins and needles.
Yeah.
Whoa. Same thing. I'm a little younger than you, not much. And it was like, yeah, but big time believer. But how about some of the other things we're hearing a lot about? For example, what's your experience with fasting?
John, I love to eat and I don't want to fast. I don't, it's just something that I know, everything I've read about it, intermittent fasting, I don't even want to do it. It's just, I'm not, and I'm going to try it down the road. I know I am because my wife's really interested in it. But it's one of those things like I made a decision. I wasn't going to worry about it and try to do something that I just don't want to do. And I know it's good for me. It's one of those things that you don't know at what point in your path to trying all these health things that you're going to do something. So I haven't done it yet. Have you?
Yeah, I've done two. Did a 10-day not intermittent fast, but a 10-day water fast. And I did a 21-day last June. And the only thing I'll tell everybody is just make sure you're medically supervised. I was personally fine, but I was in good health and I did check with my
Yeah.
beforehand. And in both cases, I was monitored by medical people with blood pressure and all, because things can go wrong. You're not eating at the end of the day. And the other caution I would give with that is you got to be on vacation. Okay. You think you're going to go to the gym and you're going to work 8 hours or 6 hours and you're going to run the street. No, you're not. Don't operate a vehicle, local driving maybe, but don't be driving
Yeah.
cross country and trying any of this. These things are therapies. Keep that in mind. And just like a therapy at the doctor, it's like you're supposed to lay low and give your body a chance to heal. Another thing we're hearing a lot about is methylene blue. What do you know about that?
That's something I don't know anything about.
I
I
can,
don't know. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. I get these people that are on my show. Basically, my podcast, which is I'm going to throw it in here, the Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. I try to put myself in the place of the audience, people who are curious about a variety of things in the fields of not just the body, but the mind and spiritual things. So those are the areas that I try to cover, and I'm just super curious, and I try to come in knowing just enough to have an interesting conversation, and also to be open enough to hear something that I've never heard before. So that's really what my show is about. I don't see myself as somebody who knows a great deal about any one subject, but I try to bring it all together in a kind of a holistic approach to information, really, is what I'm trying to do. And I've met the most interesting people I've ever met in my entire life. A couple of nutty people have come around in some of the fields that I don't cover anymore, like mediums and things like that. Although I'm interested in it, I don't really find that to be the thing that interests me or my audience that much.
like you had a great show, and this is funny because I was in since we interviewed on your show. I think I told you I was going to Costa Rica, and
Yeah.
when I was in Costa Rica, I do not stretch enough. I will admit that. I know I should stretch. I've been an athlete my whole life. I've had a million surgeries. I know I got to stretch. There's days I'm really good with it, and I feel so much better. And then there's
Yeah.
other days where it gets late. I've been going all day. I'm doing podcasts and doing my regular business. I've been to the gym, and it's just it gets to be 8, 9 o'clock at night. And it's I'm done. I had enough for today. Those are the days I don't feel as well the next day. But when I was in Costa Rica, the couple that ran this retreat center, the girl totally yoga all the way. And I did not know she had a serious car accident that turned her around with yoga, turned her around, helped her recover. And she's like, you really got to do it. So I get back here and I start looking for a place. And this is how good your show is. I start looking at a place here that does a combination of hot yoga and some of the other modalities along that way of stretching. It's actually a place that everything's hot. They do everything with heat. And I have not joined yet, but I actually stopped by. But I'm listening to your show the other day, and you got a guy on there talking about he was one of the founders, I guess, of hot yoga.
Yeah, yeah. He was the guy that started the studio that I go to now, and he's been doing yoga a long time. So he started. It was interesting. He started doing hot yoga in his house with just like regular old heaters, and he'd heat the room up. And people started to love it. And then he went when he'd been taken from all the name yoga people, which I can't name, but so he started a studio. I think he wound up having four studios until he sold the whole business. But it's what he discovered was that infrared heat was really the way to go in terms of heating the room, because infrared heat heats objects rather than air. So that's your body, basically. Your body's being heated. The floor gets hot because it's an object, and so it's very hot. It's 105 roughly in there, and you pour sweat. And I don't know really any too many other activities that you can't that you can sweat at that level where you're pouring sweat than hot yoga. It's you talk about stretching. You can really stretch. Now, I just want to say there's a thing about yoga that people get injured because they push too hard, and maybe the instruction isn't proper, and you can hurt yourself if you're not careful. And so my My biggest kind of challenge in yoga is my ego, actually, where I'm looking around and I'm like, I can do that. Why can't I do that? I should be able to do that. I did it last week. Maybe this is the week. And so for me to just go, this is what I can do. This is maybe just a notch more than what can do, and I'll back it off. I think getting injured is the main thing you don't want to do. You want to enjoy it and take out that idea of, I don't know if the word is, yeah, I guess it's competition, either with other people or yourself, to the point where you're going to hurt yourself. And it's supposed to be an enjoyable thing, and you can get a lot done on your body just by the consistency of showing up and moving. And the reason I like it is that it covers all the fields. It's stretching, it's strength, and it's mental.
Mm.
And and then there's meditation at the end. So that's covers the whole thing in an hour. So I love it. I've been doing it a few number of years now. And you break an amazing sweat. It's incredible. I don't know what else drains the lymph glands like that.
Yeah, great way to get rid of the toxins, right?
Yeah. There was somebody near me the other day, and we're doing the thing, and it's getting hot. And then all of a sudden, talk about smoking, I smell tobacco coming out of some person behind me. They were obviously it didn't smell like tobacco when it started, but the sweat started to pour, and all of a sudden I'm smelling this really strong tobacco smell. So obviously the person was a smoker, and these toxins were in their skin and their body. It was an interesting thing. It's a little bit ironic that a smoker is doing yoga. Why not? It's better than not doing it.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you say that because I think about that. Like I got a medical sauna I bought, like a company called Medical Sauna from out your way out in California a few years ago, and just go in and sweat sometimes, and I just feel so good afterwards, just getting all that stuff out of you. You know what I mean? Whatever that stuff is. I don't smoke, obviously, but just like detoxing, and it's such a important thing. But how many years do you think you've been doing yoga,
Not that long, probably 2.5.
and how often?
Yeah, I go about 5 or 6 days a week.
Okay.
It's very much a part of my routine. If I don't pay money and go somewhere, I won't do it. I'm lazy and inconsistent if I don't make a commitment to actually, and I think it helps to pay. I think it does, where you just go, I spent the money. I'm not, I'm going to do it.
I'm into that. I'm the same exact way. It's yeah, if I'm paying for it, I'm showing up. If I'm not paying it, and that's part of the problem at home sometimes, is that
Yeah.
literally behind this chair, I got a yoga mat, I got all kinds of stuff. And there's times between shows I'll get on there and I'll do stuff and I feel great. But then all of a sudden, like I said, it gets to be 7 or 8 at night, and I know I need that last big stretch of the day and I don't do it. And then the next morning, it's like I don't feel as good as the days when it's, oh yeah, I stretched my spine. I've stretched my spine's a nightmare. But let's stay on some other topics, Bob, because this is some great stuff that we're sharing here. What's been your greatest obstacle? Okay, so you were an unhealthy guy at one time, drinker. Okay, that's a long time ago, granted. But what do you think when you started? Because some of our listeners, they're at that point where they just have to start. They know they have to start something, whatever that is, whether it's
Yeah.
something or starting a health practice. Would you say your greatest obstacle was? And for
Yeah.
that matter, some of the people you interviewed.
That's always a question I ask people is, what would you tell somebody that wants to change what's going on with them? And they all say pretty much the same thing, which is start slow. Don't put your goals really unreachable, and just start. Do something very simple. Now, for me, it was just, there was two things that I did. One was walking, which is, anybody can do that. And I encourage people that ask me this, just start walking. Walk 10 minutes, and then you got to walk 10 minutes back. So there's 20 minutes. And if you can do that every day, that's a great start. You'll start to feel better. And then when you start to feel better, you want to do it more, and you make it doable. And don't worry about competing with somebody else or getting all the way really fast, because that's how people fail. If you set the goals way too high and unreachable, you're going to quit. And this is the way the human mind works, I think. Do I want to do any of this stuff? I do now, but I really didn't in the beginning, other than the fact I wanted to not feel like crap. That, and then some of it is eliminating, for me, was eliminating putting things in my body that I know aren't good for me. And I remember talking to this woman. I was taking these classes. This was a body work thing, or it was called the Alexander technique. It's a really fascinating, and I haven't done an episode on it, but it has to do with posture and how we stand and how we move our bodies. It's a pretty fascinating thing. And I was telling her about wanting to change my food, and I said, I don't like it. I don't want to give it up. I like it. I don't remember what it was. Probably sweets. She goes, "Oh, yeah, of course, because you're addicted." And I went, "What do you mean I'm addicted?" She goes, "People get addicted." And this seems now like a silly thing not to know, but I didn't know this. People get addicted to tastes and foods. And then when they stop doing it, they crave it, particularly sugar. And that's one of the hardest things there is to control or give up or manage or whatever you want to call it. And so just having that sort of concept that, so I was addicted to alcohol and I had given that up and I saw how much better my life got. I didn't even think that food or tastes or those things were addictive. It didn't make sense. It didn't register for whatever reason. And when she said that, that was a moment where I went, "Oh my God, she's right. I have cravings when I don't eat whatever it was." I'm going to probably say it was sugar. And I think giving up, what happens is your taste buds change when you are able to stop. The first few days are really difficult, but when you're able to stop, and you start eating healthier food, then if you go back to it, it doesn't taste good. It tastes really strong. It's kind of if you were to stop, and I've done this before. I got rid of my TV one time for about a year. I didn't have one, and I went back to watch it after about a year, and it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. I go, "This is really creepy and strange, and I don't like it." And it was a part of my life since I was a child, but I was addicted to it because it was just part of my, so it's the same thing with foods and unhealthy things. I don't drink sodas. That was an easy one for me to give up. I don't know why. I just don't do it. And I don't want it. And I look at it and I just, there's like an exercise that I do with things. When I look at something, we can just talk about it with food, or we can talk about it with maybe purchasing something, because a lot of people have issues with overspending and buying things they don't need. And I look at something and I go, do I really need that? How long will it satisfy me if I buy it? Will there be a backlash to it? If I eat it, maybe I'll have 10 minutes of pleasure and then I'll feel terrible for an hour or 2 hours or days. So I look at everything I'm doing, and it's a level of mindfulness that's not an easy thing to do, but that's what I do now. I look at something, and I'm not 100%. I'm not even close to claiming that. But let's just do it with food. If I look at something and I go, "Okay, that's a piece of cake." My neighbor brought me that because they like me, and they had baked a cake and they brought it, and I look at it and I go, "Yeah, that'll taste great." But now I'm into the sugar again. I'm not going to feel good. I'm going to have stomach issues, which I get from sugar. I'll grind my teeth at night because that's what it makes me do. And so I look at it and I think it through, and then I don't do it. So that is part of the mental piece of it too. It's just taking something to its logical end, which is not an easy thing to do when you look, "Oh, that's a nice looking piece of cake. I want that."
Yeah, that's why when I did that 10-day water fast, I did it over Thanksgiving, believe it or not, because it was like, when you think about how we're geared in America, right? We got a candy holiday, we call that Halloween, followed by a pie holiday, we call that Thanksgiving, followed by a cake holiday, Christmas, New Year's, if you drink, over drinking, and over everything else for that matter. And then we got Valentine's Day, another candy holiday. So in a, I don't know, 4 month period, a third of the year, we've got, okay, I survived that. I ate that I shouldn't have. I lost that weight, or I got that out of my system. Then all of a sudden it comes again. And it requires a lot of discipline, like you say, to say, hey, you know what? I know that would taste good going down, but how am I going to feel the next morning from it?
Yeah. And also, you're going to disappoint other people. They may even be offended. What do you mean you don't want this thing? Everybody else is doing it and you're a strange person. Why would you do that? It's just, I just say I'm allergic because what I am actually, when I think about it, I have a terrible reaction. It's not like hives are coming out all over my face, but I don't feel good. And you have to be willing to not be a active participant in something that other people are doing. And that's the social pressures. It can be difficult sometimes, I think.
I've watched my wife when we were in Costa Rica because we were at a raw vegan retreat. She's not raw vegan. She's not even vegan. She's not even vegetarian for that matter. But she said, "Hey, you know what? I'm willing to try this," which I give her credit for. But no coffee for a week. By the third day, she had this terrible headache. And I'm not thinking, and
Yeah.
I go, I don't know. It's probably just because you're eating so much fruit. You're like your body's not used to, honestly, this level of health. And then all of a sudden, I talked to the guy running the thing. Franny goes, "She's not drinking her coffee, remember?" Oh my lord, yeah. And if you don't think caffeine's a drug, watch somebody who's a coffee drinker, and she's only 2 cups a day, by the way. I know people that are much more than that. 2 cups a
Oh,
day.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, off it for 3 days, your head hurts because it's leaving your body. It's getting out. That's like that smoker you described earlier in yoga class. It's got to leave the body somehow. And when it does, it's not really a pleasant thing. So the best thing to do with some of these things is just not do them. To your point,
Yeah.
if
Well, you
possible.
have to weigh the price. Everything's got a price. It's what's it? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's just a natural law. And, you're going to pay. Everything's got a cost and a B side to it. Interesting thing about coffee and cigarettes, they are vasoconstrictors, as they say. So they constrict the blood vessels. So it would make sense that when you get off the coffee and probably the cigarettes, your blood vessels are going to get dilate, and you're going to have pressure that you didn't have. So you may have those headaches. Sometimes though, if you do have a headache, now, I'm not advocating this necessarily. Have cigarettes and coffee that might go away.
We were in, it was funny. We were in this little tiny town on the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. Costa Rica, they grow coffee. You're in a coffee area, right? A famous coffee from Costa Rica. But there's no Starbucks or anything like that within walking distance. So she couldn't have even snuck off and grabbed a cup, which nobody would have. By the way, there was no gun to her head. If you're an adult, you want to have a cup of coffee, go have a cup of coffee. There's nothing like that. And some of these places are so restrictive, but this particular place wasn't. But I almost felt sorry for her. I was almost at a point where I was like, I'm going to walk down and see if I can find some coffee somewhere because her head actually hurt. But to that point, she got to about day 5. She felt great because
Mm,
the stuff had left her system. Let me ask you a couple other questions here, Bob. What habits, okay, because we're really talking about habits here. Health is a habit. Good health is a habit. Bad health is a habit for that matter. But in your experience, what habits should people establish to become more healthy?
yeah, and I think it might vary for the individual because some things don't work for some people. So if you can substitute the thing that works for you, I think moving your body is incredibly important. The sedentary lifestyle that a lot of Americans lead it just doesn't work. You get very complacent, not just your body, but your mind. So I've gotten a lot out of just finding ways to move my body. This recently it's yoga, but walking and yoga. I used to ride my bike quite a bit before my eyesight got too precarious to be on the streets. Swimming. There's a lot of things that are not high impact necessarily that you can do, but that gets the circulation going in the limbs and stretching and all that stuff. That is to me the first thing that anybody can do, and then the habit of just being aware of what you're putting into your body and making a commitment that I'm going to feel better if I do these things. Sometimes you have to write stuff down, keep track of what exactly you're doing because you get more clarity that way. I don't do that now, but I have done it in the past where I'll write down what I've done, particularly in terms of what I've eaten. And that has been really helpful to me just to be making a decision to go, all right, I know this works, so how do I consistently do this? So that the consistency part is really the two most dangerous words, I think, for people. I don't know if I can say this, but it's fuck it. If you say that to yourself, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and a lot of people do, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've done it too. I don't have any special abilities or secrets or anything. It's just starting in on trying to find things out. I just did a podcast with a dentist that I learned all kinds of stuff I didn't know about, and that they probably don't teach much of it in dental school. And that's a very sort of conventional doctor kind of thing. But there's a lot of things about dentistry that are not really the healthiest things. And there are alternatives to it that are very easy to do. That was an eye opener for me. I didn't know anything, I knew nothing about it. I just assumed dentist is a dentist, but it isn't.
Yeah, no, I had a guy on talking about fluoride. And of course, now it's out of the drinking water in Utah, and I think there's a couple of other states, and
Yeah.
he wants to get it across the country. And whether that's going to happen, who knows? But yeah, to that point, I talked to a dentist, and he said, "Oh yeah, fluoride's terrible for you." Thinking, I thought you guys thought that was good for us, which isn't. But yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, when you look at people's mouths all day, you probably learn all kinds of things you probably don't want to know when you're going into that profession, but you certainly learn it over time. Let me ask this, Bob. How do you change the obvious? And let me give you some context to that. Okay. If you walk into a business and you saw that something was glaringly wrong, but the owner of that business is there every single day. For example, I walked into a business in Canada, a gym that I belonged to when I lived up there, and the owner and I became friends. And he said to me one day, he goes, "What would you change about my gym?" And I loved this guy's gym. It was my kind of gym. It was a real powerlifting gym. And you had boxing gloves there. You could hit the heavy bag. It was like my kind of place. I loved the place. And it was like 20 bucks a month Canadian. It was like nothing. But I said, okay, you know what? We became friends. Let me put my business hat tomorrow and walk in that way. And I saw some things in that business that could be changed. Simple example. The lockers were very rusted out because with the weather up there, people wear their boots to the gym. They stick them in the locker. They put their sneakers on. They work out. They go back. They put their boots back on. They go back. And 6 months a year, you got snow and ice and the stuff that they use to melt the ice, which causes oxidation. So you're not going to put your good suit and tie in that locker. A woman's not going to put a nice purse certainly in there. Little stuff like that. So let's talk about that from a health standpoint. Sometimes somebody says to somebody like yourself, "Hey, I want to be more healthy." And then you sit down and you watch them order food, for example, or light up a cigarette or order a martini. And they say, "I really want to be healthy." And you're thinking, okay, how do you have that uncomfortable but necessary adult conversation with them, just like you would with a business? Sometimes with a business, it's less offensive because in a business, maybe you're there 6 days a week, 5 days a week, you don't see the obvious. But as human beings, myself included, there's a lot of things I know I can do better. Somebody points them out, and at first it's very uncomfortable. But then you go, yeah, that guy's right. If I ate less of this, if I did more of this, et cetera, et cetera. So, how do you help somebody that makes a statement like that? And then you say, okay, let me be brutally honest with you. Here's what you need to do. How do you do that?
Yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, that's the way you have to do it. You just have to say what it is. I'm thinking of a particular friend of mine who struggled with his weight for a long time, and he had a lot of justification for some of the things he was doing. And for instance, he was eating oatmeal every morning, and he was wondering why he wasn't losing weight. And I brought it up, and he got mad. That was his first reaction. That's not that much oatmeal, and I'm putting berries on it, and I think he was putting something else on there too that was a sweetener. I don't. It was a little vague. And I kept saying it to him. I probably had to say it about 5 or 6 times because he was complaining, and I'm losing weight. I'm going to the gym. I'm doing all this. And I just was like, I just did what that lady said to me. You're addicted. You're addicted. You're trying to figure out a way to keep your old habits in your hip pocket, which is what we do because it's delicious. That's the thinking. I don't want to give it up. So I don't think there's a nice way to do it. There's a polite way to do it, but telling somebody the truth or what you think is the truth that you're pretty sure is going to help them that's really an act of kindness because you're actually helping them. There's people that'll fight it and never change, and then there's people that'll fight it for a little while. And this guy in particular, he stopped doing it and he had an improvement. And I would always say, I go, then don't do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it, but then don't bitch about it. To me, I don't really care what you do. I care about you, but I don't care what you do. So if you I that's my approach to people. If they ask me, they know I'm interested in this stuff, but I'm not they're not paying me to train them or anything. I'm just a guy.
But somebody like yourself that's got a show that's so focused on health too, I'm sure you get the questions. I've been our show really more business, but a lot of times we talk health because of my regular business, and we got doctors on and all sorts of people.
Sure.
And sometimes people ask me, and I say, "Do you really want to know?" You know,
Yeah.
but because what I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
and I'm a guy. I think I shared this with you. At one point in my life, I was 85 pounds heavier than I am now. Okay, so it was like I had to kick my own ass. I had to be
Yeah.
honest with me and say, "Hey, to your point, yeah, you think you're eating healthy, but like adding brown sugar to that oatmeal isn't healthy. Oh,
Yeah.
it might taste good, but it's not going to help you to lose weight. It's not going to help you to clean up your cholesterol and all the other stuff." So sometimes they don't really want to know. They're just saying hypothetically, tell me what I should do. And you're thinking, okay, but yeah, it's a
Yeah.
tough call. But
I think it
love your answer on that.
yeah, I think when the pain of changing becomes less than the pain of continuing the thing that's hurting you, that's when you'll change.
Maybe
You
my
know,
next question.
it's like, even if it goes 51-49%, that's when people are willing to do. I feel like crap. I'm overweight. I'm bloated. And then the other thing I say is, why don't you try it for a month or 2 weeks? And if you don't like it, go back to the other way. It's not like you give something up and you can't pick it up again. You can. So that's a freedom too, to know that if it doesn't work, you don't have to continue to do something you don't want to do.
Let me ask you on that, because sometimes we see people that we care about that are in pain, and they're in pain. And I don't mean pain where they need a medication from a doctor or surgery. I'm talking the pain of being unhealthy because of what they can control: their diet, their exercise, their attitude, the stuff that they put into their brain. If you're going to watch Harlequin romances all day, for example, you're probably not going to achieve a whole lot in your life. Okay. Watch the History Channel, learn something, watch a documentary if you're going to watch TV or whatever it happens to be. There's a million analogies. But I'd love how, when you see somebody that you know with your knowledge, which is vast, that you can help that individual, and they express to you a little bit like they're fishing a little bit like, "Hey, I'm in pain. I know I'm in pain, but I'm not going to say I'm in pain." How do you get them into that
Yeah.
comfortable environment where they just level with you and say, "Man, I am just tired of being 300 pounds, or I'm tired of smoking 4 packs a day, or I'm tired of drinking too much, or I'm tired of whatever," because there's something everybody's tired of doing that they know they shouldn't be doing. How do you get them to open that door where you can have that very vulnerable, vulnerable on their end, conversation with them?
Yeah, that's a great question because the telling somebody something is pretty much a recipe for them putting up a wall, is what I found. I think when you share your own experience and the pain that you went through on something or and the challenge, I think that makes it safer for them to go, oh, this isn't somebody who's necessarily better or stronger than me or has greater willpower or any of that. This is somebody who actually understands what it feels like. And I think that there's a safety in that, and it makes people a little bit more willing to try. It's not you've arrived and you have some special gift, because I don't think anybody does. It really is. And then really, I don't know. Wait, I don't waste time with people that don't want something. There's too many people that do want things that you can work with them if they want that, or just not even work with, just give them the information. And sometimes people get information and it has to sit inside of them for a while and they continue to do what they're doing, but you plant a seed.
Good answer. Good answer. So let's talk about the exploding human. Tell everybody about your show. Why the exploding human? I meant to ask you that last time. I love that term.
Yeah, the sort of the tagline underneath it, which kind of explains it all, is explore, expand, and explode. So it really means becoming the most explosive kind of person that you can be. It's to grow and expand and become something that's unstoppable in that world, necessarily, in the world of, in my case, body, mind, spirit. Those are the things I'm after personally. And so that's how I came up with it. Interestingly enough, when I first had put it on YouTube, I just have the audio on YouTube. They dinged it when they wouldn't let me do it. They thought it was, they took it literally that I'm blowing people up physically. And so I had to go through this through Reddit and people that have an association with YouTube, and then they can vet you and then get you in. So once that happened, and I never even crossed my mind that they would take it so literally, but they did. But so that's really the idea. And some people they get what I'm trying to do right away, and sometimes I have to explain it a little bit. And I'm not sure it's the best name for a show, but I happen to like it, so I
I
did
love
it.
it.
Yeah.
And the moniker you have on there too is great.
Yeah, I just sent you my logo for, yeah, I know you asked me for a headshot, and that's what I sent you, the logo for the show,
Great.
which is my head. It's a cutout of my head. It almost looks like an ad from the 50s where they used to cut people's heads out for businesses. Like Earl Scheib, remember that guy?
Oh, bumper guy.
I love that. I loved Earl Scheib because of that cutout head. That was just hilarious.
There was a suit guy in New York when I was growing up too. I forget his name, but it was a suit guy with a similar ad. And of course, we had Crazy Eddie in New York too. That was another one.
Crazy Eddie. Yep.
Eddie, and he went to jail, I think, eventually. There was some kind of weird thing there. But Bob, what's your goal going forward? Now you're 71,
71.
71. Okay. You're in great health. How do you
Yeah.
how do you plan on continuing not only to maintain the great health that you're in, but how do you plan to increase it as you get into your later years?
It's an interesting thing because I ask myself the same question all the time. There's an interesting balance between this idea of longevity and health span, or whatever you want to call it. And basically my goal is to live in a way where I'm not debilitated, where I can maintain a vibrancy and strength and mental clarity and all these things that, because I don't know how long I'm going to live. I don't really think about it that much because I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference in anything. I would like to live as long as possible, as long as I feel good. And I think that's a worthy goal. And that is something you have to start younger rather than later. The younger you start that idea, it's like, who wants the last 5 to 10 years of your life to be debilitating? Nobody does. But that's what happens. And being aware of that, particularly with my own family members, that the last number of years of their lives were very difficult because of health issues. I would prefer to not have that. And so I just keep trying different things and trying to learn about what's the best way to accomplish something with the body and the mind that is the least invasive and the least potentially toxic. I'm super fascinated, and I haven't done any of this yet. I don't have any like specific injuries to do this, but you talked about it a little bit. Stem cells and regenerative medicine is a really fascinating area to me, and it's really not that old of an area. It's really only in the last maybe decade that people have even been talking about it. And I've had a couple people on the show talking about it. I had a surgeon on, orthopedic surgeon, trained surgeon, and his goal, because he started doing regenerative medicine and exosomes, and which I didn't know exactly what exosomes were till I started talking to him. His goal was to have the lowest surgery rate of patients of that he could possibly get. So his whole thing as a trained surgeon is to do as few surgeries as needed, only in the absolute. Now that's a person of high integrity and of high interest in this alternative kind of thing, and he's doing that. He's lowering his surgery rates by doing these treatments at his clinic. And of course, a lot of people go to Mexico for this stuff, or they go to Europe because the United States is a little bit more behind the times in terms of getting these things approved. And But there's some amazing things that are going on, particularly with people that have specific injuries to different parts of their bodies, athletes in particular. But I'm sure you've probably looked into it because you're an athlete. That was a fascinating thing to me. And I was trying, my daughter's in medical school right now. So I was talking to her about it. It's not an interest to her. She thinks it's amazing and great. She doesn't want to do that. It's not her thing. But I was telling her like she was worried about what's going to happen in medicine. I said, there's a lot of fields that people aren't even aware of them yet. They may not have even been invented yet. It's absolutely fascinating what can be done now. It's incredible.
It really is. And yeah, they were going to replace my right shoulder, was what they wanted to do. And then I went to a doctor like this gentleman that you say, another orthopedist. I want a second opinion. It's like, it's my shoulder. And he, at the time, the stem cells weren't available yet. This is about 15 years ago. And one thing led to another. He gave me some exercises to do and some different things. And he said, hey, surgery is the last thing we're going to do. Doesn't mean we're
Yeah.
not going to do it, but we're not going to hop into it, because once we take your shoulder apart, it's not going to ever be the same. And I've got now three different sets of stem cells, and they have now increased what they can do with them in the U.S. But it's not. You're right. It's not to the level that they can do in Mexico and Europe. But I'm a firm believer. That's my right shoulder, folks. It works. It's not great. It's not. I'm not going to go throw a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, but I couldn't throw it. The shoulder was good.
Yeah.
Point being, for the things that I want to do, which I enjoy bench pressing, and I enjoy throwing shot and discus a little bit as exercise. I used to compete in it, but I don't really have time for the competition anymore. Now I do still powerlift. I still do some powerlifting meets. But point being, I want my shoulder, because beyond athleticism, you use your shoulder every single day. And I got a buddy that had the major surgery who I happen to play pro football. His shoulder goes up to here. And
Yeah.
try to drive a car long distance if your arm only goes this high, where you got to move it and everything else. That's one area of medicine that's just fascinating. But you're just an inspiration in terms of how you think, because not everybody thinks like you do.
Yeah. I just assume that more people do because I think that way, but then I realize they don't. But it's you grow up a certain way in a certain society with a certain set of parameters and things that are taught in schools, and there's limitations. And so the idea of don't take the first answer as the truth necessarily for you. There's a lot of people doing a lot of cool stuff, and it's worth exploring to see if you can find another way to do it. I had a situation, not even a big deal. I was having problems with my one of my knees and the meniscus on my knee, a very common thing. So I go to this, I don't know, it was really hurting and it was really bugging me. And so I went to this orthopedic surgeon and he did an MRI of my knee and let's schedule the surgery. And he pushed and it hurt and the whole thing. I go, okay, let me call you, right? Because I'm thinking, well, I don't want this guy cutting me up if I don't have to do it. So then I go to the chiropractor and she says to me, why don't you do the rehab you would do after a surgery, before the surgery, and see if that changes it? So she gave me a whole set of exercises, and I've never had the surgery. I don't even have the knee problem anymore. It was literally a strength and agility kind of thing in that area. And they barely even do meniscus surgeries anymore because they're highly unsuccessful for the most part. So that's just one example of now somebody else would have went, oh, this is a doctor that does surgeries at a major hospital and he's great and he's been doing it forever and it's in the MRI and there's no other choice. There was another choice. Can always go back. Once you cut something, you can't uncut it. That's it. Like you said, your guy said, I don't want to get in there and mess up your shoulder. It'll never be the same.
And the shoulder alone, there's so many moving parts, which I didn't know until I hurt my shoulder. I didn't know how many moving parts there were in the shoulder. And there's a whole lot of stuff that can go wrong. But yeah, but you're absolutely right. The stem cells are something else. But this is such an area. And I'm so happy that I forget who was the author of Narnia, great English writer.
Yeah, I can't think of it either, but yeah.
Yeah, he had a great saying, right? Like, we read to know that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And when it comes to health, it's like talking to somebody like yourself. We're in the same age group. You got a couple of years on me, but not too much. It's like so refreshing and nice to talk to people that are approaching our senior years, as we are in that realm, where we're approaching them with vitality and with goals and with vision and things that we're doing on a health level, a personal level, of course, too, because your health and everything else is aligned. But it's just so refreshing to talk to someone like yourself that's so committed to their good health long term. So I admire you for all of that and the show that you put together, because you got so many visionary people on there that are doing similar.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate that for the shout out there. That means a lot to me. That somebody, anybody really is going, oh, okay, I like what this guy's doing. That's a nice thing. That makes it worthwhile doing it, not just for my own knowledge increasing, but if other people get it too. It's a nice service to be able to perform for people, just to find out what's going on. There's so many people doing so much cool stuff.
That's the funny part is somebody, a buddy of mine in San Diego said to me, goes, you don't make any money from these podcasts and you spend all this time doing it. I go, how much I learned interviewing other people about their lives. Okay, whether it's about health, whether it's about finance, whether it's about fitness, whether it's about overcoming obstacles, whatever it happens to be that their story is, and it's just amazing how much we gain by doing these shows and
Yeah.
people.
I get the same thing all the time. People, do you have sponsors? How much money are you making? And I'm like, that's not why I do it. That isn't not everything has to be about that. It's a nice thing when it happens, but it's not the reason that I started anything that I care about. Was not money. It was never that. I didn't start playing music because I wanted to make money at it. I didn't start doing stand-up comedy because I wanted to make money at it. I just wanted to even just squeak by. I was doing those things because I really liked them. I couldn't not do it, actually. Let's put it that way. I had to do it. And this is similar to that. I do it because I really like it. And I don't know if I told you this, I don't market myself at all. I just don't. I do it all with whoever comes to the party, they're welcome, because I don't want to spend my time doing that. I'm fortunate that I don't have to make a living doing this. That's if I did, maybe then I would do more things. But the constant selling would be debilitating to me. It's just not who I. It's not who I am. Let's just put it that way.
I'm with you on that. So, Bob, just in closing, one bit of advice, one thing somebody could do that hears our show, one thing that they could do immediately to impact their health.
I'm going to say, I said it earlier, I'm going to say just start walking. Walk 10 minutes one way and then walk 10 minutes back, and do that every day or 5 days a week and see what happens. And once you get started, there's a great saying that I've always loved, which is it's easier to turn a car that's moving 5 miles an hour than one that's stopped.
Thank you again, and thank you for your insight. I appreciate it so much, and continued good health, most importantly, and continued success with your show and all the other endeavors. And daughter in medical school, when does she graduate?
She's just finishing her third year in, I think, June or July, and then she'll start her fourth year. And then it's all a whole other set of stuff. Residencies and all these things. I could talk about the pluses and minuses of medical school just from her experience, but that's a whole other podcast. The business of medical education. It's a whole sort of antiquated system with some modern stuff thrown in, but it's behind the times. I'll just say that. We'll tease the audience. Maybe you can get somebody in medical school on your show. That would be an amazing thing, because it really is about the business of educating people.
I'm going to be, this is a little secret, by the time that people see this show, it'll be public, but I'm going to be one of the hosts of the Top Doctor Magazine podcast. They just told me that. I've been working with Top Doctor for a bit. And so I'm going to have a lot of doctors, and I'm going to ask them that question. Hey, let's talk about the education end of these young docs. Is it,
Yeah.
if they don't know, just something we talk about, stem cells, if they're not up on it, Does that mean they're down on it, or are they going to defer to say, I don't know enough about it, which would be a fair answer, as opposed to, I don't know about it, don't do it. Maybe I got to go to somebody who knows about it.
It's you always hear that's not my field, that's not my area, which is why the holistic approach makes a little bit more sense, because it's this mechanical sort of attitude about the human body that I only work on the mouth, I only work on the shoulder, I only sometimes things come from somewhere else. Not sometimes, they always do. And it's an interesting thing. And some of the things they teach are not, and there's doctors that have done things, podcasts on this, and talks about things where there's one guy, I can't think of his name, but he wrote a book called Lies I Learned in Medical School, is the title of his book. And then he taught medical school, and he goes, Lies I Taught in Medical School was the second book that he wrote. Not that he was, not that it was anybody was out to lie. They weren't. It was just, but it was just part of the curriculum. It's a fascinating thing to know that you can't, you're not going to get the full education of, especially how medical knowledge is increasing so rapidly. All knowledge is, but particularly that field, it's incredible. No one can know it all. It's impossible. No one can. They're lucky if they know their field thoroughly.
A lot to know, that's for darn sure. But having said that, I'm glad people still are going to medical school like your daughter, and that's a big dedication and a lot of years of very hard work to do
Yeah.
that. Glad people are still doing that, but I also hope some of those folks are open-minded to some of the things that you and I believe, and that we talk to other people about that have expertises in red light therapy or
Yeah.
all the different other things that we mentioned on our shows. Yeah.
I asked my daughter this question last year. I said, "How many hours do you guys spend on medical ethics?" She goes, "None."
Yeah. There you go.
10 minutes of an hour? Come on. Maybe they do in the fourth year. I don't know. She said, we don't talk about that. They just don't.
It's a big area, that's for sure. We saw a lot during the pandemic that was eye opening. And love Bobby Kennedy, hate Bobby Kennedy, and there's certainly people that have different opinions of what he's doing. But I think at the very least, there's going to be discussion, and there is being discussion and dialogue that we need. We have all these forums for what's my body, my choice. Okay, so be it. If that's the case and you believe that, that's fine. But how come if I want to take a vitamin, you're going to tell me I can't do it? Or
Yeah, that's been an ongoing thing too, with the FDA trying to shut down supplement rules and all kinds of stuff. I just wish he was a little less, how should I put this, erratic.
I agree. No,
But it would serve the alternative world a little bit better, I think. So,
I agree with you 100%. At least we're having conversation.
yeah.
We haven't in a long time in our country about it, going back to Gerson back in the 40s when he was going to speak before Congress. That's probably the last time somebody came in with an alternative in front of these guys. Hey, hopefully it's going to lead to good things, because what do we all want? We want better health, longevity, happiness. These are not guaranteed to us, but they are things we can attain with hard work.
Yep. And let's add kindness into that.
Good point. Good point.
Let's add that in. John, thank you.
This has been great. I love being on your show, and I love you being on my show and talking about health, and just continued good success to you, my friend.
Thank you, folks. And thank you, John. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check back weekly for more exciting episodes. And don't miss Ink and Insight every Wednesday, where we celebrate iconic authors and dive into their impactful works.